Okay, so you've got to admit that that geocache was definitely one of the more interesting finds on the recent search. So first of all, no, it doesn't link directly to Jack and Lily's case in any way. The writing in the logbook is actually different people's writing. Yes, there is an entry by Daniel Martel, but that entry is 11 years old. There's been subsequent entries in there. More people have found that geocache since Daniel put an entry in there. I heard someone speculate, what if Daniel hid it, or he somehow planned it? I don't think that's likely. Think of this logically. This is a geocache that was planted over 11 years ago. Daniel put an entry in the logbook 11 years ago. You're talking about a guy who can't remember his own alibi from one day to the next. Look at the number of times his story has changed over the 6 months when it comes to this case. So, do you really think he's going to remember the existence of a geocache from 11 years ago and go and plant it somewhere where searchers are going to be searching? And people are like, well, you can still read the writing. If you look closely at the photo, you can see that the logbook itself was inside a Ziploc bag. So it was in a sealed bag. The bag appears to have deteriorated over the years, and there's been a bit of seepage. You can see that the handwriting or the writing in the logbook is a little bit affected, especially on the outer edge. You can also tell it's been there a long time because if you look at the inside of the box, it is way, way darker than the outside of the box, and you can see there's a rubber seal that has sealed the box as well. Like, it looks like it's just an old lunchbox or something. So, yes, it's a geocache that's been there for quite some time. Why did they happen to find it? Any number of reasons. Could just be a lucky find. Someone just happened to be in the right location to see something at the right angle. Could also be that maybe it was hidden in a old stump or something that gradually deteriorated since it was originally put there. And also it could be because it was washed out of wherever it was, because we can see the warden, Robert Parker, mentioned to the media just this week that the water was higher at the moment. So it could have been hidden in the fork of a tree and been washed out of that location because of the water. I see no reason why Daniel would be bothered planting something like this, and it would be pretty elaborate to do that, given that just on that double page you've got 7 different entries. So he would have had to have gotten people to help him out with that. I know some people are trying to claim, well, he just changed his handwriting right through, but if you actually look at it closely, you will see it's definitely different people's handwriting. Anyway, to be honest, it's neither here nor there. I don't believe it was planted, but if it was planted, to me it proves nothing. It does nothing. If it was planted, big whoop. Now, I know there's going to be people who disagree with me, but I actually think this discovery is a game changer. And I'm going to outline that in this video. So first of all, I want to give you a bit of an explanation in terms of what a geocache actually is, because I know a lot of people are still kind of wondering what it is. Basically, it is trinkets. It's a treasure hunt for useless trinkets when you boil it down. Basically, people put things in a sealed container, any sort of container, and they hide it somewhere out in the woods, somewhere out in nature. And depending on how good they are, they might hide it really good, or they might make it pretty obvious. And then they post clues online, and I'm going to go through some clues for you in a little while. But the idea is people go and find those clues. They look up the clues online, they get the coordinates. Sometimes it may not have full coordinates. Sometimes it might just give you a description of how to find something. It might give some clues that you've got to figure out what the heck they're telling you first before you can find it. And people go and they find this geocache. And they might leave something of their own, or they might just simply fill in the logbook. It's one of those things where people try really hard to find really good locations to hide these things, to make it really hard for people to find them. And the whole point of it is that you do put it in a sealed container, something that is going to last, so that it stays out there for years and years. I guess for most people it's about solving the puzzle, figuring out how to find the thing that they're searching for, following the clues, following the GPS coordinates. And for the people who hide the geocaches, it's about finding that perfect location that's going to be really, really hard for people to find. Finding a way to hide your geocache in that location, or at least disguise it. Now, on the geocache.com site, it says that they recommend people find 20 geocaches before they start placing their own. And that makes sense, because you learn what's good. You learn what's easy to find. You pick up tricks. So why is this discovery of a geocache potentially a game changer? Well, it's not like if we go on the geocaching site and follow all the different clues and stuff that we're going to find Jack and Lily. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that it gives us an understanding of the possible locations. If allegedly Daniel has been responsible for what happened to the children, then that could tell us possible locations to look. Yes, it's a little bit disturbing when you consider the sort of locations people hide geocaches. But now that we are aware that Daniel does geocaching, that gives us the opportunity to keep that in mind. And it is something that for future searchers could be a potential game changer. We now understand some of the potential locations that we should be looking. You've seen in the background here with these compilation of clips that I've shown how incredibly creative people can be when they're hiding a geocache, and how hard some of them can be to find. This one in the background that you can see right here, the father of this boy had already found this geocache, but he took his boy out to find it as well. And he thought that the geocache was gone because it had been put back even more thoroughly than when he found it the previous time. Now, one thing I think that could be useful here is that when you have a look on the geocache site, there's a number of people who've been doing it for eons. People who are probably considered experts amongst people who do geocaching. I don't know a lot about that side of it. But I hope that the RCMP actually think to bring in some of the really expert geocachers and talk to them about possible locations. Talk to them about how they find hiding locations and how they find locations where geocaches are hidden. These are people who do it regularly and have done so for 10 years or more. And they might be able to provide an insight that would allow detectives to know where to look. Now, the map in front of you is just one area of Nova Scotia. And you can see various geocache locations here on the map. And not every geocache is mapped like this. Some of them are just part of a list. You might be lucky and they might add GPS coordinates. Sometimes it could just be simple directions like go down this road, stop when you get here, look for this thing. So I hopped on and looked at the list of various geocache that are in at least the Westville area. So it broadened it out a little bit because I thought it was interesting to have a look at the sort of clues and to get an idea for the way some of these things are hidden. I also looked to see if there were any geocaches that were mapped in the immediate Gerlock Road area. There weren't any that were super close, although there were a few that did stand out to me. And one of them I'm going to have a look at the end, because to me that's a bit interesting, that one. There's a few locations here that are going to sound familiar to you, which I think is very interesting. Now, I haven't included all the details of these because the last thing we want is people going around and getting lost in the woods looking for geocache that when they don't really know what they're doing. But at the end of the day, let's be realistic. If allegedly Daniel was involved and allegedly he went and took Lily and Jack and hid them somewhere, not even the dumbest criminal on the planet would go and hide two deceased children in the same location as a geocache. So the reason I'm going through these is not to say go search for these locations, but to show where we need to get our minds in terms of possible locations for searching for Jack and Lily. Such as, I'll go through the first one and then I'll explain. So this one is, the cache is hidden at Gerlock Brook Falls, near the community of New Gerlock, Pictou County. Gives directions. It finishes with, follow the brook downstream to the base of the falls, and then at the base of a rotten stump. So you saw earlier in the video, one of the clips I showed you, where there was a rotten stump and they had put the geocache inside that rotten stump and then stacked more things on the outside of it. So you had to actually remove things before you would even find it. And when you start getting to areas where there are rivers, where there are waterfalls, then you are going to get lots of these rotten stumps. So certainly something to be keeping in mind in the future. The next one, discovered this location when cutting through the Concord Road while out on a geocaching tour. Then skip on, cache is located just past two blown down trees in a small fir. You'll be standing in line of the river's bend. So that one's actually hidden in a tree. You saw in the video there were some caches that were so well hidden in trees that you would had to move the branches to find them. And yes, two small children are larger than a geocache. But I'm talking more about techniques, places that could be potential. And then two more here. This one is another one that's at falls. They seem to like going to waterfalls, which is interesting because Daniel mentions waterfalls a fair bit. And the clue is don't drive over that pile of rotten stump and branches. So that suggests to me that this particular geocache could be inside a rotten stump that's been covered in branches. Again, we're looking at another rotten stump for hiding things. Rotten logs, rotten stumps. These are probably things that need to be looked out for when people are searching in future, because these are things that come quite frequently in these geocache locations. The one at the bottom is talking about looking for an old stone support that is left over from a trestle, so from a trestle bridge, or a railway trestle bridge. The cache is located nearby, it is hidden pretty well. So, in old ruined structures, or near old ruined structures. And yes, when I started looking at these, I at first felt overwhelmed because I thought, if Daniel has drawn on his geocaching experience to allegedly hide the children somewhere, it is going to make it more challenging. But if we can understand that, it may actually give us that edge, or at least give RCMP the edge, because now they know that it may not just be a simple case of a shallow grave, a simple case of some sort of sealed container in a waterway. So this one is another variation. A rotten dead tree with the top missing. Cache is in the hollow spot at the top. Might be just visible if you're looking for it. So they've gone in from the top, by the sounds of it, with a hollow, rotten dead tree. Again, looks like, maybe searchers should be looking for rotten stumps and rotten trees and making sure they're checking them as well. Now, I went through and I looked at the logs for all the geocaches that were planted prior to May 2014. And I didn't find any that had Daniel mentioning that he'd been there. So I didn't find any that matched the logbook for this particular cache. However, I would imagine that there are instances where people probably don't necessarily go back online and log them. I believe that there are people who just basically log it in the logbook. And unless the person who planted the cache goes and collects it themselves and updates the log, then it's possible that the online log is not going to match the log inside the cache. Now, as I mentioned, with some of the slightly larger caches, people will take something out and they'll put something of their own back in. So Daniel claims to have put a quarter in when he went into the cache. I doubt that. But anyway. So this one stood out to me as having potential. This had been there a few years before 2014. And why it stood out to me is because it talks about it's on a private property with permission given to place the cache there. Well, there's a lot of private properties in the area where this cache was found. So this could be potentially the one that was found. And they refer to having a marble tic-tac-toe and a 4H 2010 poker chip. There was a poker chip in that cache that was found. So this could be the one. Could just be a coincidence. And in terms of location, we could try and match the location, but I suspect that that geocache was found because it was probably washed out of its hiding spot. That's what I think may have occurred. And you saw in the news footage how fast that river was running at the time. So it could have come quite a distance down the river before snagging on something. They didn't actually say how they found it or where they found it. They just said it was found in the water. But, it could have washed downstream, snagged on something, and someone was like, wow, I just found this. And this cache was hidden by the same person. They've given no hints other than that it's a sandwich box in disguise. Well, heck, that could be a description for the cache that was found. Meaning that either this could potentially be the cache, or it could be that the person who hid this cache also hid the one that Daniel found. And the one that I just read before this could maybe be the one Daniel found in the same sort of container. Doesn't matter too much, I think, that we can't find the log for this cache. Like I said, I do think it's probably irrelevant. I think the only significance of this geocache is that it gives us a bit more insight into possible locations to be searching for Lily and Jack. Now, before I look at the next geocache description, I want to remind you of this photo. And I just noticed that Justin's actually wearing waders. Did anyone else notice that before? That's a bit interesting. Now, moving on from that, this photo was taken on day 1 or day 2 of the search. Obviously, Justin Martell wasn't too bothered about searching for these 2 children. He looks pretty relaxed there, pretty comfortable, not overly concerned. Doesn't look like he was in a rush to get back out. Okay, sorry, my ADHD is kicking in here. He's wearing waders. Is that why the 4-wheeler looks so clean? Because it's been through water. Although you would expect it to come out muddy. Why is he wearing waders to be driving around on a 4-wheeler? Tell me that. Okay, back to it. So you have these 2 clowns looking pretty relaxed, pretty chill, not too worried about the fact that there's 2 missing children. And behind Daniel, you have these 2 tubs that to me look like someone's been doing some concreting. And then you have the mysterious ladder. What? Why? What's the ladder for? What's the point? Nobody's been able to come up with an adequate solution for why there is a ladder sitting there with these tubs of concrete. So I just wanted to point that out before I read the next geocache. Okay, this one actually just gives me chills just a little bit. This is a 2-stage multi-hidden at the site of the abandoned copper mine adits in New Leg, Pictou County. The first waypoint is located just off Leg Road on the east side, a short distance up the bank. The final is closer to the top of the hill. There are 3 adits, tunnels, here altogether. Number 2 remains completely open. Number 3 is mostly filled in at the entrance except for a small opening at the top which a small and nimble person may be able to enter. The most interesting story of this area, however, is that of adit number 1. Today the entrance is completely sealed off, aside from a small pipe for bat entry. The sealing was done by the government in 2002 after the body of a unalived man who'd been missing since 1983 was discovered inside. You will likely come across the former site of the adit on the way to the final cache. Inside a rotten log just below the entrance to adit number 3, whatever WP is. Final, about 30 feet in on the right side. Be sure to rehide the cache the same as you found it. So I think there must be another clue inside a rotten log near the entrance to adit number 3, and then you must need to go into one of the adits, probably number 2, to find the cache. You have to go 30 feet in. This particular cache is so interesting for so many reasons. You have Leg Road. This location sounds like it is within the 5 kilometre radius. You have a cache in one of the tunnels, probably the larger tunnel, but you have 2 other tunnels here that are mentioned. Would Daniel know of this location? Quite possibly, if he's into geocaching. It says number 3 is mostly filled in at the entrance except for a small opening at the top. What if you were to break that open and then happen to have concrete on you and reseal it? Same with the one that is completely sealed off aside from a small pipe for bat entry. We never figured out what they were using that concrete for. We never figured out what they were using the ladder for. I hope someone has checked this location. And I hope that when there are dogs brought back in, that someone figures out this location and does take dogs in. Now, I'm not disregarding the many things that Daniel has said that point towards the possibility of the children being somewhere near water, that point towards the possibility of the children being buried. But I think that this discovery of this geocache tells us it may not be as simple as we thought. Maybe they are on a family member's property near water somewhere. Or maybe they are near a waterfall somewhere. Maybe they are in an old copper mine somewhere. There's so many possibilities. But I think this is a game changer. Even if it makes it seem like maybe it's going to be harder to locate Jack and Lily. Now that we know that Daniel's into geocaching, now that we know that he probably has a really good understanding of the area, then that just gives us a bit more knowledge to use in terms of figuring out where Lily and Jack are if allegedly Daniel is the one responsible for what happened to them and if allegedly he is the one who put them somewhere. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully I've explained things clearly enough for you to now understand what a geocache is. Hopefully I haven't made things seem even more overwhelming in terms of searching for these children. Because I think what we need to keep in mind here is, even if this means that Daniel has an understanding of how to hide remains, we know that now. So it's a game changer in my opinion. That said, we're talking about a guy who seems to be a bit of a mathematician and probably wouldn't have the brain cells left to really think of finding the perfect location. We have the advantage here that time was not on his side. It's not like he would have had time to go and scout out a location in the dark overnight. Seems like whatever happened did so Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, and he sprang into action after midnight Thursday and was going through the night in like Friday morning from midnight through to 5 a.m. by the sounds of it. So that is encouraging. That means that I'm probably not thinking too elaborate. However, certainly something to keep in mind. So, on that note, thanks for listening. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. I'm trying to reach my goal of 7,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Also, please hit the like button. That gets my videos out there into the algorithm, gets them seen by more people. I noticed a post on Facebook today where Belinda said that evening, last night, whichever that would be, so probably morning my time, I'm not sure. I get so confused with this 14-15 hour difference. But she said, last night was the first time when I didn't see any new content. And I was looking at it going, well, hang on. I post something every day for Jack and Lily. I saw that someone had made a comment along those lines. I tend not to post on Facebook. But I saw someone had made a comment saying that, hey, Ninchi's always posting. So if you hit that like button, that makes sure that these videos get out there and they get seen by people. Because it seems that it may not be necessarily getting out there into the right people's algorithms. Seems that not everyone is seeing that this video is here, or my videos are here to be seen. So you can help with that by hitting the like button and leaving a comment that tells YouTube, hey, get this video out into the algorithm. Tell people to watch it. And then hopefully Belinda won't be posting and saying nobody's posting about Lily and Jack anymore. That said, I know that Daphne and Justin are still posting daily. So it's possible that the algorithm is screwing them around as well. So make sure if you follow Daphne, if you follow Justin, any content creators that you follow that are covering Lily and Jack, please make sure that you hit the like on their videos. If you like what they are doing, hit the like on their videos so that they get out there into the algorithm. Leave a comment on their videos so that we are reminding the world that we are still looking for Lily and Jack, so that their faces are getting out there into the algorithm. Not just for my channel, but for Justin's channel, Daphne's channel, Charmaine's channel, whatever channel you follow. Hit that like, leave a comment. Make sure we keep these children's names and faces out there. So having just gone through that little spiel, sorry, I get a bit passionate. I really don't want Lily and Jack to be forgotten. And I want to keep the pedal to the metal with this case. So on that note, thanks for listening. Like I said, please hit like, please leave a comment. Let's make sure we're continuing to get this story out there. I enjoy reading your comments. I know I don't always find the time to reply to all of them, but I do enjoy reading them. And I do read as many comments as I can. For those of you who are members, I do make my best effort to prioritise answering members' questions. Also, I should probably mention, members, there will be a new members video coming out soon. I know I've been a bit behind. I've been working on a massive project, which you've seen me dropping a few videos of that into the members section ahead of making them public, so you know where I'm coming from with that. So, on that note, thanks for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.